Welcome everyone. My apologies, we're running late. My dog had a fit and tried to throw up all over the place, so I had to tend to that first, and successfully. Uh, no mess in the house. So, back for another show. We have a new guest for tonight. My co-host is the lovely Lilith. So,
Hello, folks.
welcome, Lilith. Nice to have you.
Thank you. So good to speak to you again.
Yeah, nice to have you back. Um,
hmm
so, you haven't interacted with our guests yet.
No,
It's no,
no,
it's
I've been the victim of a well, bit of a blocking campaign on Twitter or something. So
yeah.
I haven't had
You are
access to my
on
tweets.
the naughty step. That's how they call
Oh,
that. Seven
whatever
days
will
on the
I do?
naughty step.
I am so heartbroken that I don't have the approval of the fine folks at Twitter support.
Yeah. So, do you want to
So
demonetize the
me
stream by saying
myself.
what word got you on the naughty step? Because I don't have a problem with that. I mean, we're not making any money out of this anyway, so I don't care. Or shall we let people
Yeah,
guess?
to
Yeah,
give me free rein in that regard.
yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
Okay, we'll let him guess. So our guest, I found on Twitter, doing pretty much the same thing you got a 7-day restriction for, just having a little bit of fun, I guess. He's called on Twitter. He's called Adino the Eznite. So first, what does the name mean, and then do a little introduction.
Hello, Internet, and Peter and Lilith. I'd like to do a quick prayer, if that's okay with you guys. Can't hurt. Can't hurt, right?
Actually, no. So we're here for a conversation. There are two things we don't allow. One is prayer, and the second would be preaching. So you you I mean, you're fine if you do a prayer in silence while I'm talking. That to me that's not a problem. But yeah, we only have a short amount of time, so uh,
Your opinion, and if God wants to jump in later, he's welcome
he's most
to do
welcome.
so.
He's most
Man,
welcome.
I've been already finished with my personal prayer for 20 seconds, guys.
Okay, so Adino,
Okay, so what was the question? I ran into you on Twitter.
yeah. So tell us what the name means because I'm curious
Oh
about that,
yes.
and then do a little introduction about yourself.
Okay, Adino the Eznite was the chief of David's mighty three captains, the chief of chiefs, the baddest of the bad. He's also called Yashobium, and he's credited in one place with killing 800 men with a spear, and in the other place 300. So that would be one of the many so-called apparent biblical errors right there. Sounds pretty easily explained,
So
and that's what
in
my name means.
in
So
in,
that's where
in
it's from.
okay, so we already agreed that we can have fun with this. So I'm having fun.
I love having fun.
What's the error? It couldn't be that he's killing people for the God who loves everyone and is a very
No,
loving and just.
No, it's the
it's the
numerical
number discrepancy.
variation between 300 and 800, which is no way means it might have been a big fish story. Was he the one, incidentally, who fought in the lentil field until his sword cleaved to his hand and they couldn't get it undone afterwards for like hours? Or was
It
that
might have
someone
been
else in the Mighty
it
Man?
might have been Eleazar, but I'm not sure on that one. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, that might have been Elias. I can't keep all the Mighty Men separate.
Yeah, there was three. The chief of chiefs. Edino was the chief captain.
Okay.
Interesting, considering that Joab became his general. But
I
anyway,
was I was gonna be Samson, but it was actually gonna be a video game handle. But I was pretty sure that there was about 10,000 people that beat me to that one. So
yes. Well, and then you'd have people trying to tempt you to cut your hair.
see, Samson was the army. He didn't even need an army.
Yes, very Herculean feats, jawbone of an ass, and all that.
Yep.
Okay. So, do a quick run and tell us what you believe, and most important, why you believe it.
What I believe? I mean, do you want like my childhood story or
Ah,
what exactly?
if
What
possible,
I
keep
exactly do
if
you want?
possible keep it brief, but just so we know where you're coming from.
narrow down to the key points. You don't have to give us your,
Yeah.
dispensationalism talk just yet.
Man, I got some good stories. Basically, I was uh, I was raised a Seventh Day Adventist, which could be considered Christian. I tend to go back and forth on that. Uh, cool glasses guy from one of your previous things said they believe in the 144,000 thing. That's actually Jehovah's Witnesses. And I'm no mathematician, but I'm pretty sure that's not accurate. But it's much more complicated than that because they actually don't believe they're going to heaven. I don't know. Anyways, so my mother was a Roman Catholic, and she married my dad, who was raised Episcopalian, which might even be scarier than Seventh day Adventist. And so they never really got along very well. But I grew up in the church, and the first opportunity, I wanted nothing to do. To me, I thought Seventh day Adventism was Christianity. I wanted nothing to do with it. All through my 20s, I guess I was an atheist. If you asked me if I believed in God, I'm not sure what my answer would be, but I definitely hated him, and I didn't want anything to do with Christianity. And then as I began to age, I started studying things, and I I read about a lot, and I came to it seemed to be that there's a sinister presence at work in the world, and I studied that a lot, and I think I began to feel the Lord calling me. And so I started trying to go. My mom is still a Seventh day Adventist. I started trying to go back to church with her. And I used to just sit in church. And the Seventh day Adventist thing is Saturday is the Sabbath. So they think they're the true remnant church because they go to church on Saturday, which ironically is not keeping the Sabbath because for many reasons. There's like 37 principles, I think, to keeping the Sabbath. And I'm sure they break at least 35 of them daily. But anyways, I was in church and I would just sit there and I would be like, I'm going to hell. Like, there's no way I can keep all these rules, all these commandments. It's no way. And I used to literally sit for however long I was in church and I'd basically, like, I'd hear the sermon a little bit, but it'd be like, I mean, it was kind of a depressing thing. So I just started studying on my own. I started reading the Bible, started praying. I got a new job in one of my coworkers, and I knew he was a Christian right away before he even opened his mouth. And he was involved in a much more biblical centered form of Christianity. And so I just started studying, and I believe the Lord took away my heart of stone and gave me a heart of flesh. And that's pretty much where I am today.
One thing you didn't touch on, um, and that's to me at least it's the most important thing to touch on, the why part.
Why?
Is it because you were raised as a Christian and then just tried to find the religion that seems more sensible to you, or did you have another reason why? That's
I
because
I don't know if being I don't see I don't know whether Seventh Day Adventists would be considered a true. They have some pretty like in my opinion, Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons are far too. I consider the big three: Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Seventh Day Adventists are like the three big Christian cults. But I don't know where to rank Seventh Day Adventists because some of them are pretty biblical. Now they will
The
go.
Seventh Day Adventists are, they're Ellen G. White, I believe. They take their work or their opinions mostly from her written work. But Ellen G. White knew the founder of the Jehovah's Witnesses back when it was the Bible Studies group. I'm trying to recall.
I don't know
They
about that. You're thinking
but they
of
both used the same math that led to the one of the predictions of the end of the world and the great disappointment.
1844.
Yeah, absolutely. 1844, I think. Yeah,
I believe you're thinking
right.
of Charles Taze Russell, founded Jehovah's Witness.
Yes.
And I don't know whether he actually ever met Ellen White. You're probably thinking of William Miller, who Ellen White never came up with a single original idea ever.
Oh, no, she didn't.
Her first book, she plagiarized, like it's literally word for word. You can look at what she wrote and what the original author wrote, and there might be like one word different.
I think she, the lawyers said that she stayed within the bounds of fair use. So, I mean, it was distant. The language was adapted enough that it wasn't a direct quotation, but let's not pretend this was a magical vision from the Lord. But when it comes back to why you believe, you were obviously raised in admittedly a slightly odd Christian sect, but you were raised with at least some of those ideas of the Bible being the word of God and God existing and Jesus being the way to salvation, etc., etc., etc. When did you question those things in any kind of a, not just a feeling, not feeling it questioning, but did you ever see if those things could be demonstrated or proved or disproved?
Seventh Adventism?
No, the core tenets of Christianity.
Well, they're inexorably intertwined with Seventh Adventism. They have their own doctrine. I wouldn't say they're as far out as Jehovah's Witnesses, but I hated it. My parents were divorced, and I always wanted to go live with my dad, but my mom, she used emotional blackmail on me, and so I essentially couldn't until I reached the age where I really didn't even care anymore. And so going from my mom's house to my dad's house was like night and day. Like I would have to, I think I left when I was a sophomore in high school. So what, 15, 16? I went from this strict weirdness to a guy who I used to stay up all night and see who could take the biggest bong hit. Like most of my friends' parents, they had to sneak drink. Like I was a pansy if I couldn't drink as much as him. The first time I ever smoked weed was with him. I mean, he was never really like a father. He was more like a buddy. And all my friends thought he was cooler than me. I remember, and he was this gigantic, you know who Brock Lesnar is? He's bigger than Brock Lesnar, and he doesn't even lift weights. And he looked like Sergeant Slaughter with a flat top, so my friends were horrified of him until they found out how cool he was. And so I was like, I went from this weird, strict Christian weirdness to I could do whatever I wanted. Like, and in fact, I used to get up, I'd be trying to sleep, and my dad and his wife, my stepmom, and their friends, they'd be partying so hard, I'd be downstairs in my room in the basement bouncing off the bed. And I'd go up and be like, guys, can you hold it down? I got school tomorrow. That's not how it usually is, right?
No, you'd think it would be the other way, but it sounds like you were swinging between some extremes there.
But to me, that was way cooler than Seventh Adventism with all the rules. So, I mean, I would say my so-called Christian upbringing turned me more away from it than anything.
I can see what you mean from an emotional point of view, from I don't like this, it's dreadful, and I don't want to live like this because it's miserable and cloistering and these people are just a little bit crazy. But I'm wondering if the idea of the existence of God or of Jesus being the Son of God or of the Bible being true, I'm wondering if you ever questioned those ideas specifically as to whether or not they were true.
Yeah, many times.
And how did you come to the conclusion that they were?
In my current state?
Or at any time during the journey?
I think I kind of, like I said, I don't know that I ever thought that God didn't exist. I generally thought that he did exist. It's just that I hated him and I didn't want anything to do with him. I wanted to go my own way. I wanted to be my own God. I wanted to be my own master, and I didn't want all these rules. And so I doubt that I ever, like, if anyone would have come up, do you believe in God? I don't think I would have said no, but I didn't want anything to do with him, and I didn't act like I did. Like if I could find a metal band that was satanic, like Morbid Angel, I was like, yeah, that's cool.
But have you ever thought about checking if what you believe is actually true?
What would be an example?
For example, have you ever checked if the Bible is true? Have you ever tried to check if there actually is a God?
Well, all through my 20s, when I was, I guess, rebellious, you could say, I constantly asked God to reveal himself to me. He never, well, he may have, but I didn't really feel that he did. It's probably like most people, I want, poof, Jesus right in my room. Hey, I'm real, duh. Wake up. But, nothing like that ever happened. I doubt that anything like that ever happens. But I studied lots of, constantly online. I've been known to nerd out for days. Looking at manuscripts. I think the Bible's an eyewitness testimony. I know that you guys would probably laugh at that, but somebody wrote it.
The scholars who study that for a living and, in the original languages and compare the manuscripts are not of that opinion.
Yeah. Like who, Bart Ehrman or Bruce Metzger?
The consensus of the scholarship on the whole is not of the opinion that, for example, the Gospels are an eyewitness testimony. No. Not in the least.
Secular scholars or Christian scholars?
Both.
I don't know about that.
Well, no, you can look into it. Most biblical scholars are Christian. They have been ever since. In fact, I wonder if you've there's an introductory course on the Old and the New Testament, or two different courses from Yale, and they've put the lectures up on YouTube. And I tend not to worry about it too much. An introductory course is obviously going to be your better established things. They're not going to be going into anything too weird and fringe. You're just getting the basics out. But it contains a lot of information that evangelical Christians, at least I know, having been raised as one, were programmed to reject without thought. Without even considering that it might possibly be true.
Yeah, if you're a Christian scholar and you don't think the New Testament is reliable, that's quite a thing to.
There's a difference. Are you not reliable? Not an eyewitness account, and how reliable?
Are you not aware that there are Bibles that actually say in the Gospels of Mark, Peter, Mark, Luke, and John, that they weren't the original authors, and the way they are written also reveals that it's not written by those people. It's written in third person.
Third person
manuscripts.
Yeah, there are no eyewitness accounts.
There is Paul. He is believed to have written about at least half the letters attributed to him, although by no account did he witness Jesus during his life, though he is said to have had a visionary experience of Jesus, whether on the road to Damascus or at another time.
Yeah, so
who do you attribute wrote the book of John, the Gospel of John?
We don't know, but that one is the most clearly not listed, not written by the attributed author. John, they've given up on trying to literalize that for a long time. I've had pastors, evangelical pastors, telling me, that one's really more theological than biographical. It was written far after the others and has what is termed a higher Christology, which a lot of people are uncomfortable with admitting. I know William Lane Craig has tried very hard to poo-poo it, but he never actually brings any evidence against it. The order in which the Gospels were written was Mark, and then Matthew and Luke were closer together and used Mark as a source, often quoting directly, and that's, in the original Greek, you can see sections of that, and then adapting according to their own particular bent. You can see Matthew is trying to pack the text with as much prophecy as possible to argue toward the Jews, whereas Luke is coming from a more Pauline, open to the Gentiles side of things. But John was written far after. I don't know what the
After
estimates
the
are
destruction of the temple.
Oh, of course. But no, I mean far after the others, because the earliest things written in the New Testament, I believe Galatians might be the earliest one written, but it was definitely the epistles that were the earliest material.
Before the
I'm not talking.
Gospels?
Oh yeah, they were written before the Gospels. Absolutely.
I think they attribute Mark to around 38 AD.
Oh no. No.
No,
Not even.
no,
Mark
not any of the New Testament was written between 30 or 70 years after Jesus' death. And so they're still bickering a little bit about the consensus. I think leans towards 70 years after Jesus' death. There are a few people who are throwing in different dates. But
it's because in AD 70 there was the overthrow of the temple, and in the Gospels it's mentioned as a prophecy Jesus gave. But of course the Gospels being written later, and this is not a contentious point. C.S. Lewis casually mentions it in the Screwtape Letters that, the epistles were the first writing, the Gospels came later and were written not to make Christians, but to edify Christians already made. These things, it was the epistles that were the actual early writings, and not all of them are legitimate. You have to go through and look at the consensus of scholars. You get some argument back and forth on a few of them. But then the Gospels were written definitely after the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD. And part of the reason that that's known is not just it can't possibly be a prophecy idea, but more that aspects of Judaism described, because Judaism did, as it did when the Babylonians burnt the first temple, it changed some in practice with the loss of the temple cult, and those newer practices were reflected in the Gospels instead of the types of practices that would have been more common during the time of the temple actually existing and there still being sacrifices there and so forth.
Okay.
So I guess I'm just wondering, I know I've done a lot of research on this in different points, so I'm wondering, where have you done your research?
I've done a lot of online research. I've read a lot of books.
Yes, but I mean, online you can go to Yale or you can go to somebody's Angel Fire blog. There's a pretty wide range of quality there.
I think what Lilith means is what sources did you go to?
Well, I read the Bible a lot. I will check out any source that I can
find.
find.
The problem is the Bible's not a source to find out about the Bible.
Well, I mean, are you going to let me talk?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying. I don't consider the Bible a source. I consider the Bible a claim, and I think most people would consider the Bible the claim, not actually the source.
The Bible makes plenty of claims, yes, and there's different interpretations for those. But I guess we're asking what other sources you used. I'm sure you've read portions of the Bible quite thoroughly. Actually, odd question. Did you ever go straight through?
The entire Bible?
Yeah, but I mean, because, Daily Bread will give you that reading system where it's like a few verses here and a few verses there, and they have you jump around. I find a lot of Christians won't have gone straight through from in the beginning God created all the way, sequentially through to the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you all, amen. that is a way that people don't often read the Bible. I'm just wondering if you've ever done that.
I tried when I was younger to read the entire Bible, and I don't think I ever made it out of Exodus. Probably
Yeah, it can get a bit dry for a bit.
Probably in 2014 or
Can
15.
I be snarky again? Have you done that for 40 years? Because if not, then you're not allowed to get out of Exodus.
Oh, okay.
just I mean, we agreed on this yesterday. We can have fun.
Yeah.
So it's actually in the title. Let's not get offended. I took that from our conversation yesterday because I had no clue what title to use. So I could have said troll or not troll, but that would be kind of clickbaity, and I think that wouldn't be a little dishonest to get people to watch that if I had named it that. But
no, it's a good title. I like it.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're not done 40 years, there's no way out of Exodus.
Well, I guess I didn't make it then.
Look, you're stuck in the desert. I did not make
it to the promised land.
Yeah.
You're stuck in the desert. You have to eat nothing but bread.
But
manna.
Just yeah,
but the manna
and
apparently tastes like bread-ish.
And no one knows what manna is, except in Holland you can actually buy it. It's candy. It's kind of. I think it is rice, but I'm not entirely sure.
I bet it goes amazingly with the water that Jesus turned to wine. Now that's
I haven't tried that yet. I still have.
Well, I mean, that's really the only miracle that I gotta say. I really wish that could be true.
Yeah.
Do that, but
Gotcha.
They never let you actually taste it because it's pretty. It's pretty easy.
If he wants to do anything for me, he needs to convert water into whiskey, and that would be, yeah.
Good quality whiskey.
Like Bullet.
Oh, good quality. So.
Bullet.
Not this stuff.
It's okay.
Hey, don't knock Jack Daniels.
Bullet uses Jack Daniels for toilet paper.
I have a tiny bottle of White Horse here, which is over 40 years old, and I still can't get myself to open it. But yeah.
Well, you need a special occasion then.
You might not want to at this point.
Hold on.
Let it breathe. Well,
you think I need a special occasion for this? I mean, it's so old, the labels fell off, but it's definitely White Horse.
Chihuahua.
So, and it's never been open. It's full of dust. It's never been open. But let's get back on topic. So, what we were asking for is what sources did you go to? Did you go to?
I will go on any source that I can get my hands on. I used to go on Joy of Satan Ministries all the time and read what they have to say. And there's some pretty bizarre stuff on sites like that, let me tell you.
Yeah. Well, have you
ever heard of Stavropoulou? Francesca Stavropoulou?
Nope.
She's a Bible scholar. She's done a few documentaries that they're online. They're actually on our channel, but I got flagged down by the BBC. She asked me to put them on my channel so people could see it, and then I got a strike from the BBC and they blocked the video in all countries. So,
ouch.
Not
Thanks,
entirely
BBC.
sure. That helped, but so. She's done documentary. My favorite is about God's wife, which is an amazing documentary.
Asherah.
Yes, and she does her research well. She is an atheist.
Her name?
Francesca Stavropoulou.
Would you type her name?
Yeah. So I think I'll link.
I just put the cap back on my pen.
I'll link you in DM on Twitter. I'll send you a link to her video.
Fair enough.
She is an atheist. she's Greek, and I think she's originally Jewish. She's a Jewish atheist, cultural Jew. I don't know how you would say that, but
There's many Jewish atheists.
the way she explains it, she says
Geddy
she
Lee?
has a deep love for the Bible and has made it her life's work to study it, and not only study it, but study where it came from. And to me, at least that's the most honest approach. She's been into a fair amount of fights with Richard Dawkins about the Bible, which also is nice. I don't always agree with her, and I don't always agree with Dawkins, but she is a good source, I think. She's an unbiased source who does appreciate the Bible, doesn't think that it's a book full of myths written by goat herders. If you want to get her mad, just tell her that. That'll get her mad
Hey,
in
it's a
seconds.
legitimate genre of writing that has a purpose. There is myth in the Bible. It's written that way. It has a purpose that way. Myth isn't just, Grimm's fairy tales.
No, and
That's
a lot
what
of
I'm
myth
saying.
a lot of myth came from former religions as well. There's always
yeah.
in a myth there's always some kind of truth.
Well, and there are
And it-
greater themes of the human struggle and the, consequences of our choices and that sort of thing. It's a genre that, I tend to think of it as a wisdom genre, but then I guess I took that attitude more from Digital Hammurabi than anyone else. That's a husband and wife team who study Sumerian and Babylonian culture. And
Who is that again?
Digital Hammurabi.
Yeah, I've heard
They're
of
a
it.
YouTube channel. They're both PhD scholars, and they study that whole Mesopotamian era and bring it very much into biblical scholarship for people.
yeah.
They're back and forth.
Have you ever heard of Tim O'Neill?
Refresh my memory. The name's not unfamiliar, but I'm not.
So
Pulling up the file.
I found on Twitter there was a debate with a Jesus mythicist, and I think he's a Christian. I don't know. And anyways, he cited this guy's website, historyforatheists.com. And so he goes, "Man, this guy is an amateur. He doesn't know anything." He goes, "He messed up here, here, and here, and here." And the guy goes, "Oh, really?" He goes, "Well, why don't you ask him yourself?" And he tagged him. So, and then I proceeded to witness the most brutal Twitter beatdown, completely unparalleled, and unlike any Twitter beatdown that I have ever seen between Tim O'Neill and the Jesus mythicist guy. I was cracking up pretty bad. If I was the other guy, I would have tapped out at the weigh-in. So this guy is pretty good. He's an atheist, but he's like Bart Ehrman says, we can be virtually certain that Jesus was a real person, right? So most scholars agree that Jesus was almost certainly a real person. So if you're going to say that he wasn't, now you're getting into...
Well, there's different kinds of mythicist positions. You can take a mythicist position that says not that there was no one behind the stories, but maybe that there were several people. Josephus, for example, gives several either named or titled Jesus characters. Jesus was, of course, Joshua's name, and bit of a title of the savior and the conqueror of the Holy Land and all of that jazz. You could have several stories coming together from different sources and word of mouth and turning into a big fish story. That kind of Genesis mythicism is a little different from the idea that, someone just sat down and made it all up because reasons. I don't know, maybe they got really drunk.
Here, let me give you a taste of Tim O'Neill. And look how honest this guy is. He puts critiques of himself. And he posted this on his own website. Somebody said this about him. Tim O'Neill is a known liar, an ass crank, a hack, a tinfoil hatter, stupid, a crypto-Christian posing as an atheist, a pseudo-atheist shill for Christian triumphalism, and delusionally insane. Dr. Richard Carrier, PhD. So now, on his website, he's doing a critique of Aaron Ra, or his real name is Aaron Nelson? I don't know.
No,
So anyways,
his name's
no.
Rob.
His real name is Aaron Ra.
Oh yeah, he had it changed. Anyways,
Yeah.
he was doing a debate and he was talking about Augustine, and he said, within the spherical bubble of the firmament is a flat circle, according to Isaiah 40:22, in which St. Augustine described as a disk suspended in the concavity of the heavens, from which the Bible describes as the expanse within that giant crystal dome of the firmament. Augustine said it was mere conjecture that there might be antipodes, meaning men who walked with their feet opposite ours, and the other side is the two-sided coin that he imagined our world to be according to Scripture. He said there was no reason to believe. He said there was no reason to believe the fable that people lived on the other side of the world, and that is absolutely not what Augustine believed. Here's a quote from De Genesi ad Litteram 1.19. Usually, even a non-Christian knows, this is Augustine, usually even a non-Christian knows something about the earth, the heavens, and the other elements of this world, about the motion and orbit of the stars, and even their size and relative positions, about the predictable eclipses of the sun and the moon, the cycles of the years and the seasons, about the kinds of animals, shrubs, stones, and so forth, and this knowledge he holds to as being certain from reason and experience. Now, it is a disgraceful and dangerous thing for an unbeliever to hear a Christian, presumably giving the meaning of Holy Scripture, talking nonsense on these topics, and we should take all means to prevent such an embarrassing situation in which people show up vast ignorance in a Christian and laugh it to scorn.
Okay, that's great, but where does that indicate that Augustine did not believe in the firmament?
I didn't say he didn't in the firmament. Aaron Ra said he was a flat earther, and he literally says...
No, Aaron Ra said that the vision of the world in Isaiah was that of a flat earth suspended in a bubble dome, which is very much the idea of the world you would have had in ancient Babylon. They had that image of the firmament, the waters above and below, being basically like the earth was a snow globe in an ocean, if you want to put it simply. That concept reflects in certain areas of scripture that were written, close to that time. Oh, clicking out there? Hello?
Yeah,
Yep.
we can hear you.
Okay.
I think I hit my headphone jack.
That happens. So I'm wondering, because I've watched many of Aaron Ra's works, and he does appear to give sources for his perspective. So if I would want to know what source he gave for Augustine claiming a flat earth. There were Christians who did claim a flat earth for a time.
There still is.
Well, yeah, but in the modern day, they're just paranoid. Because, yeah, the idea is, I guess I'm wondering, this fellow you enjoyed so much, does he have any specific credentials as relate to history, for example, that he was talking about?
He's some kind of historian.
Okay. Could you elaborate?
I don't know that much about him, to be honest with you.
See, and this is what concerns me. It appears to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, by all means, that you seem to be choosing your sources based on what is most interesting, or perhaps the person who is most articulate and eloquent in presenting their position, as opposed to on the basis of who has the greatest expertise or the greatest preponderance of evidence, which of course...
No, I try and take in every source I can and compare them.
But, and that's fine. I'm saying if you're talking about sources, I mean, you can have some very interesting arguments made for all kinds of absurd positions. I don't know why you would give that sort of equal consideration with that of people who actually have degrees in the subject at hand, whatever it might be.
Well, like one example, Peter, do you remember, I don't know if it was your last program or whatever, you were talking to the guy or whatever, and you guys were spending a deal of time talking about Deuteronomy 22, and apparently there was some meme or something. And so, can I address that? I can
refresh. You can address everything. Refresh my memory. What's Deuteronomy 22?
Apparently, there was some meme, and if a man rapes a woman, he has to pay her father 50 shekels, and then the meme conflated it with a previous verse where if a man...
That was so that was actually that was a tweet that I think it was Pink Heretic who put that on Twitter, that if a rapist marries his victim, shouldn't she then be put to death because she's no longer a virgin at the time of marriage?
Because, of course, but the thing is with the rapist, if he rapes her, if she's engaged, then she belongs to another man and they both die unless it happened in a field. But if she's not engaged, then the rapist gets her and pays half the typical dowry to the father, but he can never divorce her as long as he lives. So,
but the dispute was because there's another law saying that if a woman is not a virgin at the time of marriage, and it is found out, she needs to be stoned to death.
Yeah, but you're conflating two different verses. So in the in the rape case, obviously the daughter's parents would be mad, right? So now you have to go, and in the first case, someone is marrying who he presumes to be a virgin, and I think back then they could marry at 12 years and 1 day. A female could get married. So now she marries a guy, and her father gives her away, and then after the wedding, he's slandering her name, and he says she's not a maiden, she's not a virgin.
Yeah.
So he's giving the whole family a bad name. Then they would go before the Sanhedrin.
It's a little bit.
It's a little
bit more nuanced. So the reason that the rapist has to pay the 50 shekels is because the woman loses her worth when she's no longer a virgin. She can be married off to someone else. So that's where the payment. That's where the payment comes in.
Well, I'm not addressing that part.
No, but I'm saying that's where the payment. That's where the payment comes in.
Where if a girl is married to a man and he tries to get out of the marriage, presumably, by saying she wasn't a virgin, then of course you really hope her parents kept the sheet that they had sex for the first time to be like, look, she bled, she's a virgin.
Correct. Apparently, the daughter's parents would hire people to go in their room and get all the evidence they could after they consummated the marriage.
I believe it was simply traditional for them to take the sheets afterwards. But either way,
that
entire
as soon as they left the room,
I'm sure they could get it the next morning. But that entire system that treats women like property, and still at the end of Deuteronomy 22, yes, they were making a point of combining two different laws for two different, slightly different circumstances, but it doesn't change the fact that at the end of Deuteronomy 22, a woman can be seized by a man and forced and raped, and then he has to marry her if they are caught, if she is not engaged to anyone else.
Well, now, are you looking at something from thousands of years ago with the moral standards of today? What do they call that? Anachronistic blunder? Moral blunder or something?
No. First of all, if you're going to presume that these laws were given by God, then you can't make that excuse. Either God is good or he is not. Treating women like property to be sold off after they're raped is not good. And if it is, frankly, you can keep the word. I'll go be something else that is infinitely better than that good.
The reason, it is an odd law. The reason, though, that the guy has to marry her is because she's not a virgin anymore and no one would ever want her. So basically her entire life is ruined.
Yeah. How much more is it ruined by having to be raped every night for the rest of her life? How many suicides do you think that would cause?
Depends. I wasn't around back then.
That's not the
Might-
point.
it
If
might
you
not-
could come up with a better moral law, why couldn't God? Because I sure as hell can.
Maybe you should write your own Bible.
I got a better question. I got a better question.
But the
so,
meme
so
was
according,
not about.
Hold on. According to Jesus, the laws are still valid. So it's not about being around at that time. According to the Bible,
I was hoping you'd bring that up.
to Jesus, the laws are still valid. And since you bring up Bible 2.0, guess what I found yesterday? There is actually a Bible 2.0. There is there is a religion called the New Message of God.
Oh dear.
I did not know
Is
this.
it as bad as message? What is it now?
It's in the U.S. Apparently they have a fair amount of followers already. The guy who founded it is, and I'm going to make everyone mad. He's a prophet just like Jesus was. And he's come to bring the new word of God, which is basically Bible 2.0.
Does he wear a dress and pretend to be Jesus, or does he have his own special, unique name?
No. Well, talk amongst yourselves. I'll get you some more info.
Well, actually, I was just thinking, Adino, when you said, well, write your own Bible, it was like, aw, for a minute there, you sounded just like the Quran.
So check this out. As far as this guy who said he's Jesus, Jesus already said that would happen. Matthew 24:5, for many will come in my name saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. Doesn't Aaron Ross say no prophecies ever come true? Bam! There's one right there.
That's not a prophecy. That's like saying his wars and rumors of wars was a prophecy. Like that time there was world peace. Never.
Agree to disagree?
No,
Okay.
if you're going to make a prophecy and actually have it be something that is not just, something you can post hoc fit anything into after the fact, you have to be specific. I mean, lo and the sun shall rise tomorrow.
Many will come saying, I am the Christ is not specific?
No.
And will mislead many.
At that time, I remind you.
Many will come in my name saying, I am the Christ, and will mislead many.
Yeah, that's nice, dear. Did you ever read Acts, the Acts of the Apostles? Near the end. Wonderful. Well, then you'll remember that near the end, what was the name of the well-respected rabbi who spoke up at Paul's trial? Do you remember? He spoke about many different messianic figures of that time. Judas of Galilee, but he died and his followers were scattered. He mentioned several others. I can't recall all the names off the top of my head. But this, many will come in my name and say, I am the Christ. Many were already coming and saying, I am the Christ. It was literally like Life of Brian back then. There was a Messiah on every corner every 5 minutes. He's not predicting some magical future thing that only the insights of God could possibly have revealed to us. He's talking about what was happening like now and last year and the year before that, and probably is going to continue as a trend for another couple decades at the very least.
So as far as the Jesus said that Christians are supposed to keep the entire law, I believe. Is that what he said, Peter?
Yeah.
I believe it's in Matthew where he says, for until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen will by any means be removed from the law or the prophets until everything is accomplished.
Exactly.
Matthew 5:18.
Ah, thank you.
What's the word after law?
You mean until everything is accomplished, and you want to say that Jesus accomplished everything with the crucifixion?
Exactly.
Despite
you guys already
the
know
fact...
this stuff.
Oh, no, I've
you
just
don't even need me.
Excuses before. They're just not very convincing if you read the whole thing where it says, until heaven and earth disappear, until everything is accomplished. This is the same Jesus who said, as lightning passes across the sky from one day to another, so will the Son of Man be on his day. But first he must suffer and be rejected by the people of this day. the everything is accomplished, that's, you have to basically ignore half of what he says around that entire context to pretend that that is the fulfillment of everything, until, because it doesn't say until salvation is accomplished, it says until everything is accomplished.
I think verse 19 makes it even more clear, because that says, so then whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do likewise will be called least in the kingdom of heaven, but whoever practices and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. That's Matthew 5:19, which would be a kind of weird if the laws are accomplished and are no longer valid after Jesus' death.
Which wasn't all that far in the future. I also have to wonder about
And wouldn't Jesus know already what was going to happen to him? Wouldn't he know already that he was going to be crucified? If he was God, I think the moment that he appeared on earth, he should have known that
he's written in as knowing that it's coming in several different sections of the gospel.
So then it would be even more ridiculous to say to people, keep the laws, if he knows that the laws are going to go away the moment he gets crucified. Don't you think so, Adino?
What's that? Say that. Ask again. Sorry.
I said, if Jesus knew what was going to happen, that he was going to fulfill the laws. I mean, obviously God's omniscient, so he knows what's going to happen. Jesus, as in the Trinity, is God, which I also find troublesome. But according to the Trinity, he's God. So Jesus knew that he was going to die on the cross. Then why tell people to not break the laws? Why not tell people, okay, the moment I'm dead, you can ditch the laws? And just for reference, do you still stick to the 10 Commandments?
No, the 10 Commandments have passed.
The 10 Commandments have
but
passed.
The 9 have been reinstated in the New Testament.
The 9 have been reinstated in the New Testament.
Yes.
Which 9?
Everyone but the 4th. So 2 Corinthians 3:7. But if the ministry of death, written and engraven in stones, was glorious, so that the children of Israel could not look steadily at the face of Moses because of the glory of his countenance, which glory was passing away. And then verse 8. How shall not the ministration of the Spirit be rather glorious?
That to me says nothing about a list of commandments. It does not rule out the 4th.
Written and engraven in stones?
Yes?
Yes, and those would be, well, technically the ones that were engraved in stones and retained were the second version of the 10 Commandments, which included don't boil a goat in its mother's milk and keep the Feast of Weeks, and what was that other one that was really weird?
And that one,
I gotta look it up again.
And that one is referred to in the Bible as the 10 Commandments, not the first set that was smashed by Moses.
Because he had a bit of a tantrum.
So when God wrote the second set, they were different than the first?
Yeah, actually, he wrote 3 sets according to the Bible. There are 3 sets of 10 Commandments. I lost track of the third set a while ago. I'm sure I still have the link somewhere.
I have got to Google that.
So, here, let me know when I can stop. Scriptures that prove Christians are not under the law. The law is an unbearable yoke. Acts 15:10. The law reveals sin but cannot fix it. Romans 3:20.
Hold on. Wait, stop. Go back to the first one.
I've got 33 more.
Okay, but let's go through them. Let's go through them one by one. If you're going to list,
are any attributed to the words of Jesus?
Yeah, if you go through them all at the same time, then we will have forgotten the first one, when you come to number 33. So say
I think there's a
the first one
point-
was interesting. I'd like to respond to that. Read that again.
Which one?
The first one.
The first one.
The law is an unbearable yoke.
How
No one
how does that get you to the law is no longer valid?
Because no one could keep it, and that's why Jesus was constantly going after the Pharisees.
Yeah, but so
He
the
said-
fact
Yeah,
that no
but
one
that
can
doesn't
keep it,
mean
the fact that no one can
after
keep it
all, great-
doesn't rule them out.
No bounds
You got-
more.
You guys have missed the entire point of the gospel.
No,
No,
we're
we
listening
just don't
to.
think
we're-
it's quite as it's pretty much just that there isn't a point. Jesus, in all of his quoted bits, says you have to keep the law. Paul says you don't have to keep the law.
Yeah.
Now, and there was a section, and it's very clear both from the epistles that would actually have been far more accurate and the version we see in Acts, that there were different groups, one saying you have to be circumcised and keep the law, and there was another group saying no, it's fine, you don't have to because Jesus has redeemed us and yada yada yada. Those were two different versions of Christianity, and the one that didn't make you cut your dick up was unsurprisingly a more popular sales item. The point is not that we don't get it. The point is that there are many different positions being advocated for in the same text, and we noticed.
The one that didn't ask for you to cut your dick off was a big sales item. I need to go back. I need to go back and take that quote
we are
and
free of the law because of the grace of Christ, so you don't have to cut up your dick.
I have
Yeah.
to go back and just cut out that particular quote and post that on Twitter. If you haven't seen our last this
Well, hey, you know what? Christianity was the free market of ideas. It was
Yep.
the free market.
so but Adino,
You
yeah, I
there are two competing versions,
I fully agree.
and the more popular version involved not cutting up your dick.
Yeah, I fully agree. But Adino, let me ask you a question. You got your list of 33 verses that
37.
37. Okay, I'm fine. Before you start
Can I
reading,
answer the?
no, hold on.
Can
Before
I answer the?
before you start reading those, I have one question. Who do you think has authority over Jesus?
No one.
Okay, so if you have those 37 verses, and there are some that aren't attributed to Jesus' words, can you take those out and just...
You see, Paul's words are Jesus' words.
No, they're Paul's
Seriously.
words. They're Paul's
You
words.
might not like that.
No, they're Paul's words. Paul and Jesus
He
are not
wrote
the
them
same
in
person.
one of the few parts of the New Testament that is actually very highly probably authentic.
Boy, it's odd he gives all the credit to Jesus if it was him.
Yes, of course he does. That's the
Yeah.
entire point of religion.
Wouldn't
It's not
that-
me, it's
wouldn't-
God.
Wouldn't that be the best way to validate what you're saying? Saying, hey, it's not me, it's Jesus. Jesus is saying this. Wouldn't that be the best way to validate your words? Your opinion?
In fact, isn't that what every single different minister
Christian?
says nowadays, even if they're saying opposite things? And well, and Ellen G. White, didn't she say she was speaking for Jesus or for God? I mean,
Yeah,
that's...
but she's easily misproven.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm not saying she isn't. I'm saying this isn't a new tactic. It's not somehow shocking that Paul uses this tactic or somehow proof of his sincerity, because surely he would have given the credit to himself.
So
mean-
it sounds like you're saying because they're charlatans, then we can't trust anyone. So you really
No,
couldn't ever
I'm-
know anything.
Because there are charlatans, we know that charlatans is a feasible explanation. Do a thought experiment for me. Okay. Think of your most charismatic evangelical Pentecostal friend. Okay. Think of someone who's like that. Okay.
I don't know any Pentecostals, to
Okay.
be
Well,
perfectly honest
imagine
with you.
one thing. It's a thought experiment. think about, by their estimate, by their most generous estimate, how many potential miracles and fulfilled prophecies there could be over the whole course of the earth, or over the whole body of the earth, in the next 24 hours. Okay, think about, you don't have to give a number, obviously, just get a feeling for what that would look like. Now, knowing human nature and history as you do, think about the surface of the earth and how many lies and mistakes will occur in the next hour. Which of those is a larger number?
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening.
Somehow I'm not shocked.
Like, I've experienced miracles myself, so I don't need Pentecostal friends.
No, that wasn't what I said.
I've had many things that I've prayed for come to. I've prayed for things and had it happen. Like, I've been, like, obviously you're going to think this is a stupid example, but I've been looking for something for hours, and I've prayed to find it, and I've literally gone to it in 1 second, and it was in a box that I'd already looked in. I've been locked out of my car and tried for hours to get in, and I was about to be late for work. I prayed, and I unlocked the door within a second, doing the exact same thing I'd been doing for an hour.
Okay.
So now you're going to think that's stupid?
No, I'm not. Hold on.
That's perfectly fine.
Hold on. I'm not saying that's stupid. But it's a great example. So let's run with that. So how did you determine that your God was involved in all of this?
Because it happened instantly when I prayed.
That's what's called the argument from ignorance, or the argument from personal incredulity. I don't know of a better explanation. Therefore, God.
Are you familiar with the concept of confirmation bias?
I'm not trying to convince anyone by my personal stories.
You're convincing yourself.
I am thoroughly convinced. But that's.
Do you have good reasons to convince yourself? That's what I'm asking.
Well, it depends. Is a good reason for you? Should I adopt what you think is a good reason, or should I believe what I think is a good reason?
What's wrong? What's wrong with coincidence? Do you think things happen purely by coincidence?
What is the saying? If a thing happens one time, it's a coincidence. If it happens, two of the same thing happen, it's a pattern. And if three of the same thing happen, it's a program. I've had it happen dozens of times.
Yeah. Okay. So, but if it actually is what you say it is, it would work now, wouldn't it?
No, because God is sovereign and He does all that He pleases.
Right. So it's an untestable hypothesis.
That's a great cop out. So God does it whenever He wants to do it. If He doesn't want to do it, He doesn't do it.
Yeah, right.
So you're counting the hits and discarding the misses. That's what you're doing.
That's not how I would put it.
That's how I put it.
That's something that the human mind does quite naturally, that all of our minds do. We remember the times that are more compelling because they're more compelling, and that leads us to count the positive hits on things. It's the reason why. Oh, what was that awful book, The Secret, where you're all like, just put the vibes out into the world. Well, of course, people think happy thoughts, and a couple of them get what they want, and then they write in, and it sounds like 100% perfect accuracy. It's not, but it sounds good. So, like, in our minds, that's one of the foibles of human psychology. One of the reasons that I admire the scientific method is because it does things specifically to avoid accidentally using those faulty human psychological shortcuts that end up giving us a wrong answer, or end up giving us the answer we want, whether it's true or not. And that's the part that matters to me, because I care if something's true. I don't care if I like it or not.
Well, I mean, there's millions of Christians that God is true to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but that doesn't prove any existence outside of their own conceptualization.
Just out of curiosity, there's lots of Muslims that believe Allah is true. There are lots of Hindus that believe that their millions of gods are true. Are they all true?
So if you have an iPhone and then you have 1,000 counterfeit iPhones, do the 1,000 counterfeit iPhones mean that there's not a real iPhone?
What
That
makes you think yours is real is the
yeah,
question.
yeah. How do you figure out that yours is actually real? Because that's what you did is assume yours was real, and therefore, if the others don't line up with yours, they're fake. What if the
Well,
others are
how
real? What if the others are real
how
and yours is a fake?
well, I guess I'm in trouble then. And so are you guys.
No, not
I don't
really.
think so. I don't think so.
No?
No, I don't
Wait,
think
if
so.
if Allah is real, you guys aren't in trouble?
No.
Allah, according to most versions of Allah, he's essentially the same asshole that the God of the Bible is. But I actually last week I did a Veritas Voices show with Revelations, and we were discussing Pascal's wager, and I brought up the
That's a
best.
horrible. I
I
know what he
know it
was
is,
thinking, but
but
that is
you're
a horrible.
essentially using the same thing of you're in trouble, and the best
Yeah.
response to it was written centuries earlier by Marcus Aurelius. Live a good life. If there
That's not
are
how you get to
gods,
heaven.
I don't care. That's not what he's saying. Listen to the whole argument. Live a good life. If there are gods and they are just, they will not care how pious you have been, but will judge you on the life you have lived. If there are gods and they are not just, you should not wish to worship them. And if there are no gods, then you will be gone, but you will have lived a good life and live on in the memory of those who loved you.
Well, if there's no God, what is good?
Okay, what exactly do you define good as?
Yeah.
What do I find as good?
No, the definition. I'm talking about the definition of the word, not your feelings.
Well, Jesus said, I give a new commandment unto you to love each other as I have loved you. And if you love your
And
neighbor,
a
you have
stalker
fulfilled the law.
love their victims, so that's not really helpful. A
That's not,
No.
I think we
definition.
both know
See,
that's not the same kind of
What
love.
what you're
Yeah,
saying?
it
What you're
does
saying? What you're
like
saying?
that.
What you're saying is you're giving an example of good. You're not giving a definition of the word. Does that
I'll
make any
propose
sense?
a definition of dwelling.
Sure.
No, no. Let I really I'm curious about Adino's definition of the word good.
I mean, it depends on what sense it's being used in.
How can
Moral
how
good.
can a how can a
biblical
definition
definition.
how can a definition of the word be different in different circumstances?
Let's be clear. We're talking about moral good, not that was a good dinner.
I would say what is good. The Bible says those who are in the flesh cannot please God. So you technically cannot be good unless you are involved with the Holy Spirit from a God sense.
That's still not a definition. That's
That's another
just
example. That's another example. What we're looking for is the definition of the word.
a definition is, for example, if I was asked the definition of evidence, which is highly relevant, obviously, in this whole what's true about gods and not, I would say evidence is a body of verifiable facts exclusively concordant with or directly indicative of one conclusion over any other.
I've heard that
That's
before.
a definition. Sorry?
I've heard that before.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I made a meme of that years ago.
Yes, after I told it to you
For
again.
for a guy with long hair.
Yeah, well, you do love your long hair. But that's a definition. You can very clearly say, does this thing we are discussing fit into this definition of evidence? And if it does, we can accept it as evidence. And if it does not, we reject it as evidence. It clearly delineates the parameters of something so that we know what we're talking about. Definitions are very, very important. So, what is your definition of moral good?
Not only right or good behavior, but avoiding the opposite, which would be evil.
Yes, okay, but how do you distinguish good behavior and
Yeah,
evil behavior. By what?
You're using the word in the definition that can never get you anywhere.
That's circular. So
Yes.
what makes an action good?
What makes an action good? Well, I suppose it would center around treating others the way that you would want to be treated.
Okay, so
Okay,
in line of that, I got a question from the side chat. Is it good to be homosexual?
In terms of the Bible, no.
In terms of your definition of good,
It
should
would be biblically unnatural.
That's not definition.
That's it's not unnatural because we've seen
as you would like.
Yeah, there are
I'm sorry you guys don't like my definition.
Okay, no, I'm not like it. It's not about your definition. It's not about your definition.
We like your definition. It's fine.
There are over
but we
1,000.
have to actually use it then.
Yeah, there are over 1,000 species that have homosexual acts in them. So if you're saying it's not natural, then obviously it is natural because otherwise animals wouldn't do it.
Well, dogs also eat their own vomit. Are you going to start advocating for that?
I'm not saying that I need to copy everything from animals, but you are making a positive claim that it is not natural, when it in fact is natural in over 1,000 species. Animals who don't read the Bible, who don't talk to us and say, "Hey, is that a good thing? Can we try it?" That hasn't
Dolphins,
happened.
penguins, lions, bulls, all kinds of different animals.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and it's not something that
dolphins are my favorite.
Dolphins are perverts.
Male dolphins rape the other male dolphins by fucking them in their blowhole. I mean, what's not to like about just that idea?
Sometimes they seem to be just gay, but they do it in the blowhole, which is...
That puts Flipper in a whole new perspective.
So does that mean men raping other men is natural?
It is.
That doesn't mean it's good.
What
you said unnatural.
Yeah, the difference between natural and good is something different. That's why I brought up that.
Well, how do you know the other dolphin doesn't like? You said it was rape. How do you know it's rape?
Well, pretty clearly, whether the other dolphin appears to be into it is the best we could do for determining consent in that terms.
Yeah, if the other dolphin is trying to get away.
Are you an expert on dolphins?
No, but we're also going down. Hold on. We're also going down a rabbit hole. So we have disproven the fact that homosexual is unnatural, and we still don't have a working definition for good.
I'm sorry you guys don't like my definition. I
don't know
how long you want to get hung up on this.
No, but you want to talk about moral good. You gave a definition. We don't actually have a problem with your definition. All we're saying is that if you want to give a definition, which you should, because you should be clear about what you're discussing, you then have to apply it consistently. And if you're not applying it consistently, then you need to consider why that is.
Here's my definition. Good is anything that is pleasing to God.
Great. So we have something completely unfalsifiable. Which God? How do we know what's pleasing to them? And why would that be the definition of good? Like, why?
I got a good question that I want an answer for.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So on my computer, there's a set of files that I'm saving for someone who currently doesn't have a computer. Mm-hmm. Is it morally good for me to delete those files? Can you check that with the Bible or God or whoever you want to check it with, if that's morally good? And I'd like a reference specific to deleting stuff from your hard drive.
Have you promised this person that you're going to keep these for him? I mean, you're under no obligation. You're just doing this person a favor. It's not really applicable. I don't see why you're under an obligation. You're just doing someone a favor.
I'm just curious. I'm just curious if this particular example goes against the will of God.
It's a non sequitur.
Why?
Because
God doesn't know what a computer is?
First of all, you haven't said whether or not you've promised this person these files. Have you said, I have these files that I am going to give you, I promise that I will give you these files? Or have you just only kept it to yourself and you are planning to give this person these files? Because that's two very different circumstances now, isn't it?
Let's say they lost their computer and I said, "Don't worry, I have the files." That's all I said. I didn't say I'll promise.
Depends on whether that's considered to be a verbal contract.
I didn't say I promise I'll keep them for you. At the time they lost their computer, I said, "Hey, don't worry, I got them." That's it.
And then you delete them?
Can I delete them?
Sure.
Would God be okay with deleting them?
I'm sure he would. Probably not too worried about files. I mean, what's in the files?
How do you know?
We haven't even covered that.
How do you know?
How
can you speak for God right now? Tell me how that works.
Because I'm familiar with the precepts of the Bible.
Where does the Bible mention computers?
Does it mention microwaves? So the Bible's wrong. It doesn't mention computers. That's an interesting.
No, what I'm saying is, how can you make a statement? How can you make a statement for which there is no reference in the Bible whatsoever, and you just made a positive statement? This is what God would think about that, and I want to know how you came.
The Bible says love does no harm to its neighbors. So now the question
is,
are you harming them or not?
Does it do harm? What kind of harm does it do if I delete the files?
Well, now
it depends on what's in the files. Do you have
harm?
Do you guys really want to spend time talking about this? What's in the files? Do you have this person's wedding pictures, or do you have the pictures of their first child?
Just random files.
Or
just random files.
Like a picture of the Serengeti and a giraffe gracefully strolling upon it.
So
I guess it depends on what's
if I'm getting you correctly, you because you can't use good by that definition to prove God, because you've stuck God into the definition, so it would be a circular argument. But you said that love does no harm to its neighbor, and that is the Hippocratic oath, to do no harm. So then, or in essence, so then what exactly...
I got a better one.
It seems that you are judging by harm and not by the admittedly totally unanswerable question of whether or not God would like a specific action, because then you have to presume to speak for God.
I got a better one. I can make a shortcut and go back to the original question. If you tell someone who's gay they can't be gay, is that harming them?
If you tell someone they can't be gay.
If you tell someone that it's wrong for them to have a homosexual relationship and to act on their desires and to be fulfilled with a partner in that way because it's immoral and God is unhappy with them, does that cause them harm?
It could.
I would say the suicide rate around
it probably will.
Adino, do you know my current situation in life?
I do not.
Aha, okay. So let me fill you in. I'm in a biblical relationship.
Yeah.
I am. I have two concubines. And they hate it when I say that. So I'm going to be chased again tomorrow in the wrong way. So what happened is what happened is
I was the only one who was going to get attacked today.
Hold on. What happened was
well, you just put the crosshairs right on your face.
Yeah, well, no problem. I do that all the time. Ask around. So what happened was there was a woman who fell in love with me. It took her a year to convince me because there's a significant age gap, and I didn't think that would work. So we ended up with each other. After a year, while having had someone introduce, as it were, to the relationship, they confessed to me that they had been in a longer relationship that I had been in with the girlfriend. So they
The
had,
first one?
yes. So they had been in a lesbian relationship for, I think, close to 10 years. So,
So you
uh,
kind of had the tables turned on you then.
I had, yeah, I'm in the minority now. I don't have a say at all.
You're,
Smallest violin in the world,
Yeah,
Peter.
yeah.
you're like that. You're
Smallest
like that
violin in the
song
world.
AC/DC. She's got some other woman as well as me.
Uh, now you're going back to a reference of someone who made me coffee. So my mind works in mysterious ways. I
Yeah,
had
there you
coffee.
go. You're God.
Yeah, Angus Young made me coffee in his kitchen because he lives a couple of miles down the road, and I visited him. Uh, so, but what I'm asking you is, do I now have to tell the girls, as I call them, that they can no longer be gay, and do you think that would be harming them in any way?
Well, the Bible is not applicable to you because you don't believe in it. So do whatever you want.
Wait, so now the definition of good changes because I do not believe in the Bible?
Oh, sorry. From ask the question
Because
again.
your definition
Is it
of
good?
good was if it pleases God.
So would it be harmful? Say, ask the question again.
Your definition of good was it needs to please God.
Right.
You also said that homosexuality is unnatural. Homosexuality is against what the Bible teaches.
Correct.
So you'll have to tell the people who are gay that they can't be gay anymore because they're going against God. They're not doing good because they're not pleasing God. Isn't that correct?
And yet, no
And
harm to each other.
now my question would be, would that do harm to them, you think?
Well, if they don't want to be Christians, it wouldn't matter.
That's not my question.
Why?
That's not
Why
my
should they
that's not
care?
my question. I like it that you divert to it,
Believe it or
but
not,
that's not my
we
question.
actually care about good and truth.
Well, what is good?
Are you asking for
What's
my definition as opposed to
what's
yours?
what's the standard?
Oh, well, that's simple. The standard is, well, very clear once you define your terms. Now, are you asking for my definition of good?
Sure.
I take Scott Clifton's. An action shall be considered good or moral if it in some way adds to health, well-being, or happiness, or decreases unnecessary pain or suffering, or does both. And an action shall be considered wrong or immoral or bad if it somehow decreases human health, happiness, or well-being, or increases unnecessary pain or suffering, or it does both.
So if you
Now,
gave
that
someone
is very clear. It's not arbitrary. You see, the standard being arbitrary is not a real thing outside of Christianity. As long as you're clear about what you're talking about, you only have to then judge by relating to reality. Knowledge then becomes, well, important, obviously. The more you can tell about the well-being and the effects of your actions, the better decisions you can make. But that doesn't mean that it's an arbitrary standard that someone just, it bases on the whims of the moment, such as one might choose a chicken or a beef sandwich.
Yeah, and another fun part, Adino. You know what?
fun
Just
part.
yeah, the fun part for me, it's a fun part. Uh, we agreed we can
How
have
long?
fun.
How long are you guys planning on going?
So we started a little late. A couple of more minutes.
Okay.
So the fun part now is that earlier you stated that Levitical law is no longer valid, and now we're going back to Levitical law to determine whether or not homosexuality is against God. So
Romans 1.
now you got me all confused.
I think it's against Paul but Paul was
Paul
was a bit of a creep.
I think Paul got that from Leviticus.
Probably. If indeed he was a Pharisee.
We can all trace it back to Leviticus. When a man sleeps with a man like with a woman, it's an abomination. That's in Leviticus, which you said was no longer valid. Correct? So what's wrong with homosexuality?
We can all be all of the gay.
Yep.
Too bad I'm not gay.
Knock yourself out.
Well, isn't that correct then?
No, not according to the new covenant.
Where in the new covenant? Where in the new covenant are the exceptions of the laws that need to be kept? Because you had a vague statement about 9 commandments. You haven't listed any of those.
The exception
is in those 9 commandments. Is there a commandment, "Thou shalt not be gay"?
Yeah. Paul lists several times the homosexuality as a sin.
No, you said you had a clear list of 9 commandments that are still valid.
Tell me, it's very interesting. It's very interesting to me.
But you haven't listed those. No, sorry, you haven't listed those 9 commandments. Can you please list those 9 commandments?
I said all except for the 4th would still be valid.
So homosexuality is not in there.
The 4th?
Homosexuality is not in there then.
Yes,
no,
it's not. It's not like we cut the 4th commandment out and we still keep the 10 commandments. They're all gone. The law which was engraven in stones has passed away because there's a better way. It's called the new covenant.
And where precisely are the terms of this new covenant laid out clearly in the New Testament?
I would say the best place would be in Romans.
And why should I take the terms of this so-called new covenant from Paul, little bit of a narcissist, instead of from apparently Jesus, who's the supposed Son of God and the founder of all of this and everything?
Which brings us back to an earlier question. Does anyone have authority over Jesus?
Apparently, Paul.
No.
According to you, he does.
His gospel from Jesus.
So he claims. Do you know for sure? Or are you going to take his word? Are you going to take his word over Jesus' word just because he claimed it?
His word is Jesus' word.
Yeah.
So I had drinks with Jesus last week, and he said Paul was a douche and that you totally should not listen to him because he was completely creepy, wound up on things. And
I got a better one. I got a better one. Lilith, I got a better one. Do you know? Do both of you, hold on, do both of you know that I got my other account got suspended just before that account got suspended, and I will link you into a conversation with him if you want.
Please do.
Adino. I was sent the entire website that Jesus had put up in both English and Dutch, which I still have to sort out.
Oh, that's sweet.
Because he has Jesus.
No, Zeus is not a Dutch name, darling.
No.
Oh.
No. Jesus is... So Jesus at the moment still lives in Amsterdam. I tried to get him on the show, and he's so disappointed because he made national TV a couple of times, and he's mocked all the time. People don't believe that he's actually Jesus. He can draw terrific pictures. I mean, no 4-year-old can top that. What he does.
Wow! This might require some more research.
Yeah. So if you go on Twitter and you go look for Harry Jesus, and not Harry, as in me.
I was gonna say
Harry as in Harry Potter, and then Jesus.
Right.
But I can link you to him. That's not.
I wanted to touch how we came across each other because I was surprised. So I found this guy Religulous on Twitter, and I was like some of his arguments are so childish. But every time I try and start an argument with him, the pack of hyenas surrounds me, and like I go to the bathroom, I get back on Twitter, and I have like 21 notifications. It's just like, oh, hey,
you
have
see
you ever
him?
ran in?
There's Shamrock.
Yeah, you already showed me.
Shamrock is Religulous Bird, and Shamrock is here as a tribute to my mentor when I came on Twitter and later on YouTube. He has guided me through everything. He was the one who coached me through my first talks.
Have you ever ran in? Can I do a shout out?
Sure.
Have you ever ran into? Oh man, I can't remember his name. Michael M. Paulkovich, or I think he has like a picture.
Yes, I follow him.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, tell that guy Adino The Eznite says hi. That guy is a straight up snowflake. He will block a Christian so fast. Like, here's how I met this guy. So he posts something ridiculous. I respond, and then I go to bed. And then I get up, and I had about 7 or 8. I've got pie charts. I got like a picture with a rock, and it's got the greater than pointing to the rock, and then a Christian over here who's dumber. And then I got like novels written about how stupid I am.
You're the one that's offended. I mean...
And I'm like, holy cow. No, I'm like, holy cow. So I'm going to respond to this, right? So I go to respond, and I'm blocked. So I'm like, oh, well, all right.
So let's be fair. Adino, hold on. I know the point you're going to make. And
I doubt it.
The point that you are going to make is something that happens to me a lot. I'm a lot different. I'm a lot different on Twitter than I am in these conversations. I think we both have figured that out during the intake. I mean,
could think that.
Why would people get me suspended if I'm so nice? I mean, I'm on a Christian hit list, Adino.
Are you guys familiar with the Myers-Briggs personality?
Of course. What are you?
I don't know. I'm the same thing as Star-Lord or Iron Man. Anyways,
I'd have to look that up.
I think a big problem is, like, especially on the left, I think a majority of them are feelers. And then like someone like Ben Shapiro would be on the right. Facts don't care about feelings. And I'm far more on the thinking side.
Oh my God, you just said Ben Shapiro is a thinker?
He is. He's definitely a thinker.
Totally.
He's definitely not a feeler.
Oh, yes, he is. He's the most easily butthurt little creature in the world. The fact that he's managed to come up with some pseudo-intellectual vocabulary to hide it, I mean, that doesn't actually make him less absurd and reactive.
Hold on. You hijacked my M. Paulkovich or whatever the story that I was trying to tell.
Yeah,
yes,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Man, I feel like I got to start over. So
okay,
I tried to argue with this guy.
He responded a bunch to you, and then you came back and he had blocked you, or you couldn't.
So I try and respond, and he's blocked me. So I'm like, oh, all right. So then, like the next night, I get up and there's like 11 more, like all this stuff. Now, like I'm not more just dumber than a rock. I'm dumber than elephant dung or something. All this other stuff. Novels written. So I go to respond. He blocked me again. He waited until I went to sleep, unblocked me, spammed me, and then blocked me again. So I'm like, all right, that's it. So I get on my other Twitter account to go see what he wrote about me, and then I'm looking at some of his other stuff. But of course, I can't keep my mouth shut when I see some of the stuff. So then I get my other Twitter account blocked by him. His headline should say hashtag preaching to the choir.
So I have a question, Adino.
I
have a question. I have a question.
Of course, you and I block you because you agreed with it.
No. I'm talking about other people in the context of conversations.
But I got a question, Adino.
Oh no.
The way you and I are on Twitter, the way we word our tweets, we would say we're just being a little snarky. We're just having fun. Could it be? Yeah. Could it be that other people who read our tweets think that that we're trolling?
We're total jerks.
Yeah.
Yes.
See. Now you answered while Paul and Kobe
Sarcasm is not well
may
conveyed.
have blocked you.
I've been called much worse in real life, so
I don't doubt it.
you
Well,
remind me of my sister.
Aw, poor thing.
So we're on a little over an hour and a half. I think it would be a good
Yeah, I'm good.
it would be a good thing to wrap it up, because if we go longer, less people will watch the show, and we obviously will want to.
Drinks and a sandwich. So unless you're going to make me a sandwich.
Sandwich?
A sandwich.
Is that reverse feminism?
I like the English word better.
No, that's
Asani.
called
Asani.
needs to make me a sandwich.
Pasani?
Asani.
Pasani.
A
Pastrami?
A Sani.
Asani.
Yeah, that comes from
You lost
sandwich.
me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is that's never mind. It's some weird European.
I blame
that fish.
I blame Lynn for this on Twitter. She had me watching Dinner Ladies, and I'm watching the whole series again because it's extremely funny.
Dinner Ladies?
Dinner Ladies. Go look it up. It's a UK series. I love it. So I want to wrap this up. I already made you the offer that you can come back with the topic of your choice. So I'm hoping.
I hope I was a little. How do I put it? More well behaved than the last guy I listened to, because by the time you guys started threatening to mute him, I had to turn it off.
Yeah.
I couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah, and I told you, for now, I can't mute, because if I mute you, I'm also going to mute Lilith, and so that wouldn't work. Because I cannot mute Lilith, because I'll be damned.
Mute Lilith?
I'll be damned
boy.
until eternity.
You're damn right you will. You will not get to go to the fun part of hell.
Lilith was the only one to stand up. Lilith was the only one to stand up to God and get away with it. So be very afraid.
I got out of paradise on my own damn terms. Ain't nobody got time for those little bitches.
The best quote I ever saw. Lilith walked out of paradise because she wanted to be on top, and Adam wouldn't let her. That was the best quote. Sorry, had to throw it in there.
Hey, I came across an awesome quote the other day. Can I read it to you?
Sure.
It's pretty short. You know Penn Jillette, like you guys seem
know
pretty much everything.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the quote?
Well, there are several quotes of his. You would have to know it.
He said, I've always said I don't respect people who don't proselytize. I don't respect that at all. If you believe there is a heaven and a hell, and people could be going to hell or not getting eternal life or whatever, and you think it's not really worth telling them because it would make it socially awkward, how much do you have to hate somebody to not proselytize? How much do you have to hate someone to believe everlasting life is possible and then not tell them that?
Yeah,
Gillette then offered this example to illustrate his point. If I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that a truck was coming at you and you didn't believe it, and that truck was bearing down on you, and there's a certain point that I tackle you, and this is more important than that.
So, on that note, that means that you're actually better than God.
Yeah, actually it does. You're a more moral person than God.
You're a lot more moral than God, because God, who is omnipotent and could convert me like that, hasn't done it, and you're still trying.
Well, that excludes the point that he may still.
He may still. Well,
it's really ironic that he would wish me to be brought up as a Christian, and then because I did way too much research and finally actually listened to scholarly sources after ignoring them for about 10 years, that then made me an atheist. That seems an odd plan on his part.
There is one thing I promise: if he wants you, you will believe. Trust me.
Oh, sweetie, no. Belief is compelled by evidence in honest people. In dishonest people, which I was trained to be in this regard, you can make yourself believe. But no longer being enslaved to that mindset, I have no intention of making myself believe anything.
Neither did I.
But you never seriously considered that God might not exist.
Oh yeah, I did.
But I'm just taking your own words for it. But you can actually, that might be an idea if you come back, could a topic to consider when you considered that God might not exist, what convinced you, that kind of thing. It's an idea. Just think about it.
Well,
And you're completely free in getting a topic. Don't tell us up front. We don't want to prepare. We don't want to be prepared, because that, as I said.
Oh no, that takes all the fun out of it.
Yeah.
Can I request your other host? Do you always have two hosts?
So if you're going to come back, if you're going to come back, you're going to come back to Lilith and me.
Oh, okay.
If however you want to have a conversation with any of the other hosts, we can do a third show, and you can pick your host. I'm fine.
So
with that.
every show I get more power. I'm drunk with power.
I wouldn't.
Well,
So you know we have a co-host who has the nickname the Neil deGrasse Tyson of atheism, right?
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Robert.
Who's cool glasses guy?
I've always liked Robert, and you should have me on a show with him.
Oh, who's cool glasses guy that was puffing the magic dragon?
Cool glasses guy?
Yeah, he's got the little red glasses.
Little red glasses?
Yeah, he was your co-host when you were talking to the very confused Christian guy.
Yeah,
who didn't care what his kids.
The glasses. I don't think the glasses were red, but I have to go back. That's Artemis.
You didn't listen to the whole description.
Artemis brain sample.
Huh?
Artemis brain sample.
Oh, okay, that sounds familiar.
Artie for short.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
All right, friends.
So,
all right.
For now, I'd like you guys to mute. I want to thank everyone who was in the live chat for joining us. I had fun during this conversation, so I'm very much looking forward to a next one, and also to a third one. And I'm sure Artie's just waiting to jump in, so that won't be a problem. We're going to leave you with our small outro, and probably this week we're going to have another episode of Herding Cats, where we have a Iranian refugee who is here in Holland and who is experiencing trouble to get refugee status. I'm going to talk about that. So keep your eyes open on the Twitterverse, where I will announce when that's going to happen. And catch you all next time. Bye-bye.